All right, good morning. We're going to be talking about CY1 day 4. So if I go to my curriculum map, I select day 4. You're blocking it. You're going to see that we've got 3 links here. We're going to open up the slide deck and the lesson plan. All right. Today is about Loyola Story Part 1. So we're really telling the narrative of Loyola and particularly the history of the Faith Crest. We're reinforcing the use of Canvas and also the digital protocols and document creation and submission using Google Workspace for Education. And then we're going to be introducing the Jesuit Schools Network as well as our Ignatian identity with regard to the crest. Here's all of our terms for the week. The lesson plan is really short. It's bell ringer, a throwback Thursday with the quote discussion, direct instruction that really requires you to know kind of the beats of the lesson. So I think this is an important one to rehearse. And then student presentations. By and large, this is a favorite for teachers because it is a little bit less stuff in it. So let's go ahead and get into it. So we continue with intellectually distinguished. This is day 4, which is the 27th of June. Going to page 29 of our planners. Students should be doing this already. At this point, we really shouldn't be reminding, but you never know. Freshmen are freshmen. We're going to pray the sushi pay. Again, there's a missing part of the prayer. Let's see if students remember the last line. Pray it together. Have a student volunteer pray. They're going to select a norm. And the norm that they're going to select is best for storytelling. So again, in the planner, there's a prompt about that norm. So make sure you look into that. Bell ringer, and then our Throwback Thursday quote discussion. So the agenda. Then we're going to replace this with an image. So for example, my Throwback Thursday, a proud moment was after my knee surgery. I went for a 5K. This was my first run post-surgery, and my legs were really, really weak, but I was able to complete that race alongside of, you'll notice 2 pictures alongside of my old colleagues. So this is who I worked with at Pius Matthias Academy and my Loyola colleagues. So it was a triumphant moment. It's also, I'm a keloid former. So my scars over instead of healing kind of into the skin. So I was a little bit paranoid and self-conscious about that. And so it was the first time kind of exposing that scar and being okay with it. Have the students do this with a partner. Then we're going to look at this quote. How does it connect to being intellectually distinguished? Why do stories matter? There's lots of ways that you can approach this question. You can ask students what it means. Why do you think this is relevant? And do that for about 4 minutes. Then we're into the Faith Crest portion. So this is Loyola's Faith Crest. You'll see it on the right here of the screen. And we are part of what's called the Jesuit Schools Network. Now, in order for you to access this link, you need to have an Educate Magis account. And so I've been spamming you emails that you need an account for this because you can't access this unless you have an account. What I love about this map is that it's really cool. You can scroll up and it shows you basically all of the schools. So we have 82 schools in the United States, and it kind of shows you the spread. It shows you the universities, the Fe and Alegría schools, which we don't have any in the United States, JRS, and schools in general. So if we scroll into this part, we've got Sacred Heart Nativity, Sacramento, keep going down. We're going to notice that we have 2 schools in Southern California, Verbum Dei, and there we are, Loyola High School of Los Angeles, which is a really cool thing. You can view the profile, and it's going to tell you about what to expect, right, in terms of who's who, although this needs to be updated. So that's sort of the map, and we can scroll out again to see how the whole map looks. I always find it's fascinating that there are 270 schools in India. I think that's really cool. So just look around, show them the map, show them how the universities look in terms of 62 universities, 27, that we're part of something larger than Loyola itself, which is why in this particular class, we spend time talking about it. So mess around with it. You could even say, you can even test the class, like how many does this country have, and let's check it out, or have them ask you questions. We're gonna give them 3 minutes to kind of think, pair, share here. What does Loyola represent to you, and what stories have you heard about Loyola? Give them 3 minutes to think about that. They could write it down in their notes section of their planners. They could think about it and then have them share that aloud. And then we want to talk about how stories are really just representation. Good stories and symbols are relevant and powerful. They are universally, ideally recognized. And now, students of 2028, you now are the new symbols of our community. You now represent us. So your stories, the stories that you've heard, the stories that you are co-authoring with us are all part of this experience. So we're going to do a little symbols competition. What's this one? Chanel, McDonald's, Target, Apple, or Mac, right? Mercedes, Nike, Honda, Loyola, right? And so what we're trying to get here is that symbols do matter and they carry stories with them. When we think about Chanel, we think luxury, right? When we think about McDonald's, we might think of convenience and that they're kind of ubiquitous. When we think about Apple products or a Mac, we think well-run, efficient, again, probably ubiquitous. Target, all like one-stop shop, right? So again, representation, these symbols, they're not just like, this is Target. This represents something larger than itself. So I want you in your notes, this is me talking as a teacher, to jot down, what do you notice about our crest? So give them, what does a coat of arms or a crest or shield represent in general? And what do you notice particularly about this one? And so you give them the timer. You can decide to, again, silence it if you don't want the music. Just 1 minute, minute and a half. What do you notice? Fun fact, this faith crest first appeared on the stained glass entrance of Rupert Hall in 1926. Excuse me. It's not the best picture, but when you go inside, it's really resplendent. So this is my favorite part of the lesson, actually, is talking about what does the crest mean. And the students on page 29, where it talks about the faith crest, this is where they'd write this down. So the meaning of the Loyola crest is actually connected to St. Ignatius of Loyola, Inigo de Loyola's family. So the L represents Loyola. The wolves and cauldron is probably my favorite part. I always ask students, what do you think this means? And their answer is always funny. Well, first we'll talk about that crimson and gold, which is actually not really a Loyola thing, like a Loyola color. That actually comes from the Onassis family, which is the paternal side, or excuse me, the maternal side of St. Ignatius's family. So those colors come from his family's coat of arms. And then the lobos, or sorry, I'm giving that away. You'll notice that the wolves in the cauldron represent that there's a time that the Basque country where St. Ignatius lived went through a great famine. And during that famine, they were a very well-to-do family and were able to feed not only themselves and their community, but even the wolves, even the animals were able to get scraps. So that's sort of the lore behind this image. But my favorite fact is this kind of in this box at the bottom. What does a wolf in Spanish? Anyone know? I always like to ask this. Some kid will say lobo. And they'll say, what's a cauldron or a pot? Like that cooks things in Spanish. An olla. So lobo y olla, Loyola, right? Loboya. So Loyola. Actually, when you put those together, it makes the word Loyola, which I think is really cool. And then finally, I asked, what do you think the striped field stands for? Those are our colors, the school's colors, different from the Onassis family colors. So then we want to go into, well, what do you notice about these other faith crests? Here are all Loyola schools, Loyola University of Chicago, Loyola Marymount, which is a stone's throw from us, and then Loyola High School. What do you notice? And have students compare and contrast. You know, the Loyola University of Chicago and Loyola's crest have that grid. The Onassis family colors show up in the Chicago one. You see that Loboya present. The difference is that IHS, which shows up on other crests, one's a circle, one is more of kind of like a, I don't know, a bent arrow. You can see their founding date on the university ones, but not necessarily on Loyola's. So different crests have different flavors. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to have the pairs, so the TBT pairs, join and make a quad. And in each quad, you're going to assign a slide. So the first thing that I would do is I would open this slide and say, each of you is going to receive a crest from our Jesuit Schools Network, particularly a high school. You're going to notice that if I'm in charge of a quad, like let's say I'm in charge of Bellarmine College Preparatory, I'm going to visit these websites. So the school's website, and I'm going to visit maybe their commencement program. And I'm also going to Google. What I'm looking for is a snapshot of the school. Where is it located? What's its demographics? That means gender, that means race and ethnicity, that might mean class. Summary and analysis of the mission. So what is their mission statement? And what does that mean? And then you want to describe the crest. We're going to delete this box, and then you're going to add a picture of the crest. If they have enough time, you're going to compare and contrast in the bottom where it says special sauce. And then they can, once they're done with their creating the slide, they need to rehearse a presentation. Everyone needs to speak in the group. So there's 4 voices that we want to hear. That presentation needs to be well planned out. And if they have extra time, they can zhuzh it up or change the aesthetics. My advice to you as a teacher is not give them access to a shared slide deck because it creates chaos and then we have to go check in on the editing history. My advice would be give each student, have them make a copy of this URL, the shortened URL, and have them work on that slide and then have them email that slide to you and you put it into whatever your version of the slide deck presentation is. Tell each group that you'll have 2 minutes to present. That's why there's this timer. As soon as we start presenting, the teacher is going to turn on the timer so that they know how much time they have. So this also allows them to rehearse with a timer. They're going to have 15 minutes to prepare this and make this look beautiful. Each presentation is 2 minutes because, again, 15 minutes plus 2-minute presentations, you can have up to 6 groups. This is about 25 to 30 minutes of work. So we just want to keep that in mind. And then we listen to student presentations. When they're done, they need to know that their Canvas 6-word memoir is due that next morning, 8 a.m. Any late work, this is the last day for it, tomorrow, 8 a.m. And then we'll see them on July 2nd. And that's pretty much the day. One other thing that I'd like to say is if they're not finding stuff, I really tried to curate this so that most information is here. But Google is like, it's a skill. So have them use Google if possible. We need to let them know that this should go away and this should go away when they're, and all of this needs to be replaced with. So like I would replace all of this and I'd format it in a way that looks presentable. I don't need the instructions to be on the slide. So that might be an explicit thing you can say. And that, my friends, is day 4.